everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is bring about conversations of a psychological, mental health, emotional health paradigm, coaching paradigm. We do that as often as we can. We've got over 1,500 of these for your listening pleasure, and we continue to do that as often as we can. I haven't been around for a little while. Life's gotten crazy, but back hopefully a little more in 2023 and beyond. But anyway, this is reasons that teenagers struggle with depression. If you have a teenager, as long as you're over 18, I do serve to coach folks 18 and over and have for 15 years. If you are looking for that level of assistance, would love to be of assistance to you. Please feel free to reach out at PO Perception on Twitter and or in the About Me section of this YouTube page. Either one can get you in touch with me or a member of my team. We can make something happen from there. In any event, what are some signs that or reasons why teenagers struggle with that level of depression? The first is the illusion of competition. Now, that can be brought about due to grades. That can be brought about due to social status. That can be brought about due to social grouping. But regardless, many teenagers struggle with the idea that they need to be in competition with each other, with their peers, in order to be helpful, useful, or in some way, not negatively affected. And that can be super problematic because at the end of the day, many of these individuals don't realize that everyone they think they're competing with is actually thinking they're competing with them. And so it becomes one big, giant mental game because nobody's really as worried about you as you think they are, and thus you're just kind of psyching yourself out in a level that isn't necessarily productive, healthy, or smart. Next is greed or entitlement of attention. So a lot of times, the younger generation has been in some way supported or coddled or raised in such a manner that they feel as though they shouldn't have to do any level of work that makes them uncomfortable. And I think we see that more and more as the benefits of an inclusive society means that everyone can fit in and find their place. The drawbacks to an inclusive society is that many times people have difficulty understanding that they can't always get what they want, and it leads to that sense of entitlement and or greed that ultimately causes relational challenges, especially if someone hears no for the first time when they're 18, 19, and ultimately, whether that be for a job or a relationship or anything else, it can be a very uncomfortable emotional transition to be protected for the majority of one's life and then hear no when they're not expecting it. The next thing is fear of failure. This is probably the biggest and single most damaging thing to teenagers today, is the concept of fear of failure being a major issue. Mainly because everyone will fall short of their own expectations internally once or twice or many more than that times in a lifetime. But if they don't have the skills and the ability to cope with going through that, then their quality of life will be negatively affected in a way that it can take a long time to come back from. It does not mean that everyone who has ever had emotions around fearing failure is going to necessarily be a failure, but the inability to cope with what to do when one has fallen short of their own goals, aspirations, expectations, or things they desire is a life skill that unfortunately the younger generation isn't gaining as rapidly as previous generations have or could in the future. The next is the preoccupation with living in the past. Rumination is damaging to young people because if one doesn't have the coping mechanisms in place to handle the negative emotions of things that have happened in the past or the meaning that they have given to the things that have happened in the past, it can be a super uncomfortable and downright just a somewhat dangerous situation. So the difficulties there and the struggle there is, what does one really want to focus on instead? Also, preoccupation with the definition of the future can cause emotional paralysis in multiple ways. In other words, if a person is constantly preoccupied with what the future is going to look like, feel like, be like, then ultimately there are challenges in that regard as well. So kind of looking at all of that, obviously we want young people to be as armed as possible, and resiliency is the important part of that. So finding a way to help the teenagers in your life become as resilient as possible is essential to their overall development and personal and professional and emotional growth. So hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.